Welcome to the next Unit 4 that we're going to be doing in this group of stuff. And the first one we're going to talk about is 8.1, which is where we're talking about measurements. We're only going to be doing 2 sections of 8. And so 8.1, this is the first part. We're going to talk about standard measurements. Standard measurements or American measurements is how most people in America measure things, okay? We're going to be talking about how you measure length. And these are common things that if you're an educated person, they kind of expect you to know. So when you're measuring length, the most common way to measure it is you can measure it in miles if it's a long, big thing. You can measure it in yards. You can measure it in feet. Or the smallest unit of measurement that we have in the standard system is inches. Okay? Now, let me make sure that I emphasize to you that this is how America measures things. It is not how the rest of the world measures things. In fact, there's only 2 major countries, one of which is a little bitty island in Fiji, and the United States, and then another couple of little small islands that use standard measurements at all. But because we live in America, we want to cling to our standards of measurements, and so that's why we cling to these uses of measurements. It wasn't until the 1800s that these standards of measurements were even all the same from state to state. And so you, as possibly going into the nursing field, or if you go out into the industry, you're going to have to know how to do both. How to do standard measurements as well as do the metric measurement system. So we're going to talk about, first of all, about length. Well, first of all, if I'm converting, in other words, if I'm changing from one unit to the next one, if I'm going to go from a big thing to a small one, then you're going to be multiplying. If I'm going to go from a little thing to a big thing, then you're going to be dividing. So big to little, you're multiplying. Little to big, you're dividing. Okay, so the problem with the standard measurement system is that it's not the same. Okay, for example, if I'm talking about feet, do you know how many feet are in a yard? There's 3. Do you know how many feet there are in a mile? There's 5,280. What a weird little number. Do you know how many inches are in a foot? There's 12. Okay, so these are the measurements that you kind of should know because we use them every day, but they're not standard, and so that's what makes it a little difficult. So, some examples with converting. Let's say that I have 3 feet and I want to convert it into inches. Well, feet, a foot, is bigger than a little inch, so I'm going from big to little, so I'm going to be multiplying. Well, what am I going to be multiplying by? Well, how many inches are in a foot? There's 12, so you're going to take 3 and multiply it times 12, and that's how you get the 36. Okay? If I'm going from feet to yards, well, a foot is smaller than a yard. Think of a yardstick. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to be dividing because I'm going from a smaller one to a larger one. Well, what am I dividing by? Well, how many feet are in a yard? Well, there's 3, so I'm going to take 9 and divide it by 3, and that's how I get that it's equal to 3 yards, okay? If I've got 24 inches and I want to convert that into feet, you're going from inches, a small, to foot, which is a little bit bigger, so you're going from little to big, so you're going to be dividing. Well, what are you dividing by? Well, how many inches are in a foot? There's 12. So you're going to take 24 and divide it by 12, and that would come out to 2. So 24 inches is 2 feet. So you have to remember the 3 little units of measurements that you're asked to do, the inches, the feet, the yards, and then you're going to be converting from one to the next by either multiplying or dividing. Well, what happens if they're mixed up ones? Okay? For example, these all divided nice and easy. But what if they didn't divide nice and easy? For example, if I've got 63 inches, it's in inches, and I want to convert that into feet. Okay? Well, we're going from a small to a big, so I know I'm going to be dividing. So I'm going to be dividing by 12, correct? Well, if you take 63 and divide it by 12, it's going to go 5 times, but you're going to have some leftovers, and you cannot use decimals, okay? So standard measurements do not use decimals. You never hear 5.3 feet. So what do? Well, it didn't go in evenly, but the number that it went in is how many feet. So it's 5 feet, and then your leftovers, your remainder, are the leftover inches. 3 inches, okay? So how many times it went in is your feet. Your remainder is the leftover inches, okay? So it's kind of like taking an improper fraction and changing it into a mixed number. You're taking an improper number of inches and you're going to change it into a mixed with feet and inches, okay? So think of it as the same idea as we did when we did that idea. If I'm going the other way, let's say that it's already a mixed and I want to change it to just 1. So in this case, I have 5 feet and 3 inches, and I want to know how many inches is that. I'm taking a mixed and I'm going to a singleton. So you're going to use the same idea as we did when we were doing fractions. You're going to multiply and add, okay? So you're going to take 5 and you'll multiply it by 12, because there are 12 inches in a foot, and that would give me 60, and then I'm going to add the leftover inches, and that's how I get 63 inches. So you're going to take how many feet it was and multiply by 12, and then the leftovers you're going to add, and that will convert it back to 1 unit of measurement, inches. So we'll do part 2 in the next unit when we talk about how to convert pounds and ounces.